and I yield to the senator from Oregon for a question without losing my right to the floor.
I thank the senator from Connecticut for yielding for a question. Mr. President, I begin my question by noting that the senator from Connecticut and the senators from Oregon have a common thread that runs between our two states. That common thread that runs between Connecticut and Oregon is that our two states have been the sites of two very deadly school shootings. In Sandy Hook, Connecticut, it was in mid-December 2012 when a madman armed for a war zone stormed into Sandy Hook Elementary School and began a murderous rampage. A rampage that ended with the death of 6 school staff and 20 little boys and girls. And not even 3 years later, a nightmare came to Roseburg, Oregon. Roseburg is a quiet little town in southern Oregon. It's the town where I spent part of my childhood. It's the town where I went to first grade. It's the town where I learned to swim in the Umpqua River. And as I said last October, if this can happen in Roseburg, it can happen anywhere. But happen in Roseburg, it did. It was October 1st, 2015. It was a beautiful autumn morning in this small town there on the college campus. We heard the sound of gunfire. A disturbed individual charged into a classroom at Umpqua Community College with 6 guns, and in the space of just a couple minutes, took 9 lives, including his own. One of those lives he took was a cousin of mine, Rebecca Ann Carnes, 18 years old. She had just graduated from South Umpqua High School the previous June. She was an avid hunter. She was a lover of four-wheeling. And in the picture she posted online for graduation, she had a picture of her graduation cap, and she was holding it, and it said on it, "And so the adventure begins." She was ready for the adventure of adulthood. She was ready for the adventure of going off to college. She was ready to explore the world. She was excited. She was a beautiful spirit. But her adventure ended so shortly after graduating from high school before she could really get started on the journey of the balance of life. Mr. President, our hearts break for Sandy Hook, and our hearts break for Roseburg, and our hearts break for all those who are afflicted day after day after day all across this country as victims of gun violence. And now our hearts break for Orlando, the latest name to be added to a list that no town or city ever wants to join. In that occasion, 49 innocent lives taken, 49 young Americans full of hope and promise, 49 individuals, each with their own story, cut down because simply of who they are, whom they loved, or whom they associated with. A hate-filled individual targeted a place that was a sanctuary for the LGBT community. He turned this place of solidarity and togetherness and love into a place of fear and divisiveness and hatred and bloodshed. This unthinkable carnage leaves Congress, all of us here in the Senate, with a choice. It's a simple choice. We have 2 basic options. One option is to take some action that might diminish the odds of the next Sandy Hook, or the next Umpqua, or the next Orlando, or the next assault, the type of assaults that take day in and day out across this nation. The second option is to do nothing. So that's where we are. Option one, take some action, take some reasonable action. There is no perfect answer, but there are substantial things that could make a difference. That won't make a difference in every case, but will make a difference in some cases. And isn't that the situation with every law we consider? That they'll make a difference at least part of the time to avert a tragedy. Now, I come from a gun state. I come from a state, the beautiful state of Oregon, the best state in the United States of America, where people love to hunt. They love to target practice. They believe powerfully in the individual rights of the Second Amendment. But Oregon is also a state where the citizens believe that we should not put guns into the hands of felons or those who are deeply mentally disturbed. And so it was in the year 2000 that Measure 5 was put on the ballot as a citizen initiative. And it passed overwhelmingly in the state of Oregon to expand background checks to gun shows. The citizens did that in an initiative at the ballot. It's a state where our legislature took action just last year in Senate Bill 941, the Oregon Firearms Safety Act, to close the Craigslist loophole. Why does this make so much sense? If you keep a terrorist from buying a gun at a gun shop, shouldn't you also keep that terrorist from buying a gun at a gun show? Shouldn't you also keep that terrorist from buying a gun out of the classifieds or the online's classified, the Craigslist classifieds? Yes, of course, each piece of this makes sense to keep guns out of the hands of felons or those who are deeply mentally disturbed. In Oregon, folks believe that people should buy their guns legally with the background check, and that process shouldn't be averted through straw purchasers, subverting the law by putting a different name than the name of the person who's actually acquiring the weapon. Hunters and target shooters in Oregon know you don't need a military-grade, supersized magazine to go hunting, and that smaller magazine sizes may give an opportunity to interrupt a killer during a shooting spree. You know, when you hunt for ducks, you're allowed 3 shells in the gun, 1 in the chamber and 2 in the magazine. So my question for the senator from Connecticut is this: when will Congress finally say enough is enough? How many lives would have to be lost in one shooting for Congress to act? When will Congress join with responsible gun owners across this country and support common sense steps to prevent horrific tragedies? When will we close the terrorist gun loophole? When will we close the gun show loophole? When will we close the Craigslist loophole? Like we've seen in Sandy Hook and like we've seen in Roseburg, and now with Orlando, we've seen that all too much tragedy has taken place. Thank you, Mr. President.